Today I'm breaking down how we can draw a Jinx. First you pick your reference. I picked mine off of Pinterest, then I downloaded the image and I saved it onto Procreate. Once the image was imported, then I picked my brush. Personally, I really like marker roll. If you look at it, it feels really nice to use. Often the most comfortable you'll feel with a brush is when you feel like it's a real one, and with Procreate sometimes we don't have that. I found a trick. If you turn on your brush cursor and you have it showing both, then when you use it you can actually see the shape of what the brush that you're using is like. It makes it a lot easier for me. Maybe I might make it easier for you. Now that we have got the bases down, I'll explain how I drew this. I started off by tracing, which I know sounds dodgy, but I just traced the overall shapes so that then I could make my own sketch, only looking at the shapes without having all the other details to distract me. Highly recommend it. I had to pause my voiceover just because I had this cough coming, which is why my voice sounded different. But for the rest of the line art, I just tried to replicate and not focus too much on having it perfect, and instead keeping it as more of a guide. The trick to keeping it as a guide is simply take it into linear burn or color burn if you want, and tone it down to 50% at the start. And then when you're drawing, it helps you to focus less on coloring in each line and genuinely just try and paint what you're saying. Just with the lines there as kind of reference, but not as what you depend on. You don't want to be dependent on the line art if you want to be able to illustrate things like Arcane. And so I won't show you this, I won't be pointing it out, but if you pay very close attention, you'll see that over time I lower the opacity of the line art more and more until it gets to the point where I no longer have line art. Now, because to improve art, it usually just takes a lot of practice and repetition, I won't be trying to explain every single little thing that I did. A lot of it was literally just looking at things, trying to figure things out, and then trying to imitate as best as I could. However, there are things that I can help you with. Two essential but simple things, which are shapes and detail. And so first, shapes. You know, when you get to a pretty complicated part of the drawing where there's something like the side pocket that Jinx has, and it's just really hard to know how to break it down. And I'm sure that you've been taught this in the past, but the best way to go about it is by breaking it down into shapes. You'll see it in more things, like her top. I didn't quite break it down into shapes, but I tried to make lines that would guide me that otherwise I would have forgotten about or had a harder time noticing because all the colors are quite similar, and that way it was easier for me to translate it into my own drawing. For her hair, because it was so complicated for me to draw it, I just had to break it down into these they're weird rectangular circle things. Broke them down into 5 because that's how many she has at the top, and also made sure to guide myself with the lines. It was a lot easier for me to then imitate it. And lastly, to make the detail process a little bit simpler for you, I've broken it down into 3 steps. The first step being to think of a base color and shape. You first start out with that. Afterwards, you think of another shape with another color to either shade or give light. And then to add that little oomph to your details, that's when you're allowed to use lines. Then they can do so much more for you, adding sharpness and emphasis to your drawing, instead of keeping you in a box from the moment you start painting until the very end of it. Hopefully this video has helped you one way or another. Let me know what you've been able to apply.